This is Link to the Cast, your weekly dose of video games and nerd culture ephemera, available everywhere good podcasts are sold. I am the party host, I'm the returning platforming prodigy, I am Mark Robinson. Dave Ryan is away on assignment, or just avoiding me, maybe it's a bit at this point, who knows. But with me, to my left, first of all, here's Mr. Chelsea, here's Jack Lazell. Jack, how are you? It's good to hear from you again.
Yeah, I think since last week, Dave was eaten by wolves. Unconfirmed report so far, but very possible.
As in, like, the club, or just actual wolves?
A mixture. I think Neves and 2 adult-sized wolves.
I have no pithy comeback for that, so I'm just going to carry on. To my right, I have with me the Nexus of Humanity, Garrett Kidney. Garrett, it's been a while. It has been, over 6 weeks since I think we last did a show together, and that's just too long for me. I don't like that.
That's true. I did have a major life development last weekend. So, I went to a wrestling show. And the show was called This Is Not a Wrestling Show, This Is a Tribute. A reference I did not get. For reasons we have discussed in the podcast in the past. A reference that went completely over my head until the very last moment of the show, after the baby faces won, the bearded beauties won their tag team tournament in an extreme Cork classic, and by classic I mean a 2 3/4 star match. And after the show, all the baby faces got together and did a karaoke version of Tribute by Tenacious D. The first time in my life I have heard that song.
Is this like how people learn about classic movies from like Simpsons parodies? Like,
yeah. But what I want to know is, like, how long into the karaoke rendition did you finally clock on what you was listening to?
Oh, like a good 30 seconds. And then I was like, that's why that's the name of the show. That all adds up.
Yeah.
And it was very funny. I was going with my brother Ken, who is a listener to this show.
Hi, Ken.
He also recognized the bit that it's like, oh, it's the song you never heard in the podcast. And they wanted to strangle you because you never heard it on the podcast. And I was like, well, that's my major life development. I have now heard Tribute by Tenacious D.
You know what? Like, you winning Xenoblade Chronicles Best Music of the Year is all worth it for that 30-40 second segment right there. Thank you, Garrett.
Garrett, like,
great.
just to align on this, what were your thoughts on the song Tribute by Tenacious D?
Well, keep in mind that this is a karaoke version.
No. Like, this is
wrestling event.
This is the ultimate version of the song for Garrett.
Oh, it's canon now, is it? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is the perfect way to hear that song in a former theater called the Kino. A former German theater. I guess it's not German, it was Irish. It was just called Kino because Kino is German for cinema, and that makes them sound fancy.
So it wasn't named after Kino then, like Roy
It was not, even though it is a Cork institution. It was not named after Roy, even though everything should be named after Roy. I don't know, pretty good song. It's alright. Solid enough.
Fair enough. Would you consider, like, dipping your toe a bit further into the deep sea that is Tenacious D? Would you be going for like a Wonder Boy next?
Only if they do it as karaoke at the end of these wrestling shows.
I see. Could I tempt you in the fact that in the video they're kind of all dressed a little bit Game of Thronesy, and that it actually has the lyrics to Kill a Yak from 200 yards away with mind bullets in it?
No.
All I'll say, Garrett, is if you want to send us the name of the show each time you go, we can just check with you there and then if it's a Tenacious D reference, just so you know going in.
It may well be. I'll probably go to their next show. Actually, I am going to their next show in April. It's RCW in Cork, which is either Rebel County or Rebel City Wrestling. I now realize I don't know off the top of my head, where they had a very weird situation where they were Phoenix Wrestling, but Phoenix Wrestling died and did in fact rise from the ashes as RCW in what I would assume is some kind of either ownership dispute or tax avoidance scheme. Not sure which. I can only assume it's one of either.
Garrett, like, for somebody that you seem to be either extremely pop culturally aware to the point of knowing like all of the details behind the things that are happening, or just completely in the dark. Like, does that crop up and affect you on a daily basis?
That I'm just completely oblivious to large swaths of pop culture?
Yeah.
I'm extremely good at faking it, is what you'll learn, Jack.
I see, right.
But
yeah.
I feel like everyone has that one area that they're just completely blank in. I don't think any one because there is just too much pop culture out there.
Jazz.
Everyone has to have their blank. Yeah, there you go. There's yours. You might be the exception to the exact just thing I just said there, Jack, in fairness. I can't think of anything other than, I guess, like very, very modern wrestling, but then I wouldn't consider that pop culture. I'm pretty sure you have I could throw any kind of question your way and you'd have at least a good stab at an attempt.
Yeah, much like Garrett, just based on reading Twitter, following like you, Garrett, and a few other people, like I might be able to stab a sort of a half-assed conversation about modern wrestling out, but yeah, I know a little about a lot, and I'm not Jenny from the block.
But also some stuff you know a lot about a lot.
Yeah, you know how it is. You know how I be.
You know more about American football than I think is reasonable for a person from North London should know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's just like me and Neil Reynolds. Yeah, obviously Dave is obsessed with his lifetime fanship of the Chargers to an almost like unfair degree. Unhealthy, some would say. He just does not stop talking about them Chargers all the time. So there is that too.
Garrett, I also have hideous pop culture retention, which is also a bad thing. Whereas like there's people who are like, oh, I saw that movie and I can tell you the plot to it and I can tell you who was in it, and I'll be like, I saw that movie, I really liked it, could not tell you a single thing about it. Like 2 years after I've seen it.
My ex-girlfriend was the same, and it honestly used to freak me out. Like, I would have sat and watched a movie with her once, and I'm like, oh, it's a bit like that bit from The Thing, and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, what? When did that happen? I was like, I saw the film with you. How are you not? Oh, yeah.
No, I'm the same as Garrett. I barely remember plots, characters, actors and actresses' names I'm terrible with. The only thing I seem to retain is like main events of wrestling pay-per-views from the year 2000 onwards. That I'll recite, like the gospel, but otherwise I just can't remember anything.
Can you do all 50 US states?
No, I can do about 30.
Again. War Torto, U2, Tentacle, Aerodactyl, Almanite, Slowpoke, Pitch Out, Hard Rock. That's all, folks. Those are the states.
I can't do the poker rap either.
Yeah. I can do the opening and closing verses.
Was there ever a Digimon equivalent of that?
There wasn't, which is outrageous.
Digital rap.
There was a lot of music in Digimon, because you had the songs. You had the Hey Digimon song. That was a good song. You had the entire Digimon movie, which featured All Star by Smash Mouth before Shrek did. So it's a Digimon song. It's not a Shrek song.
What?
I forgot how much Garrett loves Digimon.
There's a new Digimon game out in the next month. Digimon World. It's a traditional RPG after Digimon Survive deeply disappointed me, pretending to be a strategy RPG that was actually an anime, like manga novel thing. That's actually not a game, which is very sad. But there's an actual proper RPG out in the next month. I'll be very excited. I'm sure I'll talk about it on the show and you will pretend to listen.
If I was with you, I would smile appreciatively and tousle your hair when you were speaking about it. Sure.
Thanks.
There you go.
I've missed this show and I've missed you too. I'm just going to bounce straight into what we've been watching, and I'm going to start with you, Jack, because my housemate has been watching this as well. So I've seen it from afar, but not actually kind of sat down and watched any in particular. And this is White Lotus.
Oh. So, this has been on my desirable to watch list for a long time. You have the things where you're like, oh, I absolutely have to start watching that now. And then you've got like that middle list of things that's like, I really want to watch this, but I just need to find time in my schedule. And then there's like the other list of just like, oh, someone said that to me, that was good once. And the it was good once kind of list is the ones that is really very rare if you get to many of those. But yeah, this was top of my desirable. And I sat down and I watched the first episode. And then I watched the next episode, and then I finished all basically whatever it was, like 10 hours of the 2 seasons in the space of 2 days. I in between, by the way, working 8 hours on both of those days as well. So over the course of 2 days, you had 26 hours of my life taken up by work and White Lotus, and you were wondering what else I did.
Jack Lazel, the king of rock and roll.
Exactly, I am hardcore HXC, bro. So yeah, it's basically the premise of the White Lotus is both seasons are set in like high-priced hotels. The White Lotus is a chain, and then the first series is set in Hawaii. The second series is set in Sicily, or Sicilia, if you're that way inclined, in Taormina. And the premise is each season starts off, you see someone is dead. You do not know who is dead. It's not really a murder mystery because, like, in one of the cases, like, maybe not so much the person that was found died in a particular way and you don't really know what happened, but you basically start off each season that you know someone is dead, and then you meet all of the main protagonists of the show and you're just thinking, okay, so what's going to happen here? But then on top of that, it's kind of like a meta commentary about the sort of ineffectual, uncaring nature of really rich people, and then their relationship with the people of not only the places that they are visiting, but the staff who work in the hotels. And it is just brilliant. It's brilliantly written. It's like funny in places, and in a sort of like a black comedy way, and it's funny in places where it's just genuinely funny. The people in the show are just incredible, like in all of their roles. Like Jennifer Coolidge, for instance, who many may know as Stifler's mum from the American Pie movies, is just, I mean, she's just the best, but also the worst. Like you really don't want to hear a lot from her, but the little snippets that you do hear from her, she's just so funny, and just such a weird narcissist. Like first season, Murray Bartlett is like the main like guy, the concierge, like the head honcho of the hotel, and it's just his battle with Jake Lacey, who many may know as Plop or Pete from season 9 of The Office, which kind of like is the main backbone of the season, and then like season 2 is just like a real combination of some pretty like strange characters, but I guess the main like thing is the two couples, of which Aubrey Plaza is one, and Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos is in there as well, which, you know, every time I saw him on screen I just wanted to go Christopher, but you know, it's not it's definitely not that sort of role that he's playing. And also like Tom Hollander is just this really wealthy kind of gay retired guy who lives in Sicily, and the combo of all of the different characters and the way all of the story plots kind of slot together, there's just so much charm for the people that you root for, and then there's people that you absolutely hate, and then sometimes those are kind of interchangeable, but in both seasons the sort of large message is rich people bad, rich people douchebags, so that's something that I can definitely get behind. But yeah, it's just a very, you know, it's a very well written show. It kind of keeps you on your toes. You're not really sure how things are going to play out. There's mild moments of tension and sort of like threat, but nothing too much. It's got this sort of like hazy, like slow pace feel to it, but when it does like pack a punch in a scene, it can really go hard. And it's a great show. It's written by Mike White, who wrote School of Rock and Orange County, which, you know, very different in tone from this, but two of my favorite movies of the early 2000s, which at some stage kind of makes me want to see Jack Black in the show, just to see what he would do with one of these characters. Making him like one of the rich guys would be really interesting to see if you could hate him. But yeah, just a massive recommend. Really, really fucking good show. I absolutely loved it, both series of it, and I think I might at some stage potentially rewatch it, because I know it's been renewed for a third season. So yeah, be interested to see where they go next, because we've had Hawaii and Sicily, and they were both pretty cool locations. But yeah, I think both of you would like this. So the thumbs are way up on White Lotus.
Garrett, I'm interested. Jack spent quite a bit of time last week talking about the Fablemans, so I want to get your thoughts after last week.
Yeah, Jack covered it over pretty well last week, because you get a Steven Spielberg movie and you just sit down and you're just in such a safe pair of hands.
Can I just say, by the way, I have enjoyed greatly seeing like on a bunch of buses in Dublin that like this is Spielberg's masterpiece, and it's like pretty sure he's at about 10 of those at this point. I don't see this being just the one masterpiece at this point.
You really can't narrow it down with old Steve, especially like the thing I always admire about Spielberg's filmography is just the sheer variety of the movies. Like the man who can go from Schindler's List to Jurassic Park, like who can do that? He can because he's like the best filmmaker ever. And you sit down and you just settle into a chair, and like maybe the biggest criticism you can say is like he doesn't like innovate in movies anymore because he's perfected what he does. That's why he doesn't really innovate in movies anymore. You sit down there and it's like, Steven Spielberg, tell me your story, particularly in this instance, because this is basically a biopic of himself for the most part, with character names changed. And you just sit there and it's just like, yep, this is a good filmmaker making a good film, and he's really very good at this.
Yeah.
But
I mean, what more can you say? I thought it was just a perfectly executed movie from start to finish.
Yeah, and I think
no notes.
The big thing you always hear about these movies, it's a movie about the magic of film. And it is, but I think what Spielberg understands is like there's like a very wanky way you can take that, where it's like film changes the world. Film is such this great obscure thing that just appears out of nowhere. And Spielberg's thesis is more like, no, it's artists, and artists have to sacrifice things for film. And that like for as much as there is genius and for as much as there is creativity, there is also something that has to be left on the table when you give as much of yourself to any kind of creative endeavor, film or otherwise. And that's kind of the central thesis of the movie. And I like, because you always get the Oscar baity like film movies, and it's like, oh lads, stop patting yourselves in the back. Or I know there is the scene where like the Sammy is sitting in the theater and he sees the trains crash, and it's like his eyes widen and suddenly he realizes he wants to make films between the hours. Like, there is that scene, but for the most part it's not the like pat yourself on the back, isn't film great kind of movie. It's more like this is what a creative type has to go through to make these kind of things.
Do you know what I liked about that though, Garrett, is like it wasn't the immediate realization of him seeing the trains crash and then the light bulb going off in his head. It was like a slow evolution of what about that captivated him. So like at first he was like almost haunted by it, and then the next thing is he kind of wanted to recreate it to see what it would look like if he played it out. So he got his own model train set to do it. And then his mum suggested, look, you can't keep doing this because you'll break your model train set. Why don't you film it and just do it once, and then you've got it on film for once. But then he did it like once and twice and 3 times and 4 times from loads of different cuts and angles. And then it was that sort of like picturing and framing of it that kind of built into his enthusiasm for it. So it wasn't just, oh my God, I've seen these trains crash, I'm going to be a director.
Yeah.
You'll go far, kid. It was very much seeing it through the eyes of like the process of being a child and trying to understand and pick apart what it is about that particular thing that buzzed in his brain and what he wanted to do with it to kind of reframe it. He's just a very good storyteller. And again, the moments of the film that required storytelling in terms of the script were great. And the moments that required storytelling in terms of just like I don't know if you agree with me on this scene, but I talked at length last week about him putting his mum in the closet, making her watch the video that he made where he knew that she was having an affair, and then him outside, like, and just the cutting back and forth between her face, Michelle Williams, and Sammy's face. I just thought that just like stuff like that is no one does that as well as him.
Yeah, and on the point of like him working through his creative process, like the one of the big climax of the film, he goes to school and there's a bunch of 2 kids in particular who bully him because they're horrible anti-Semites. But he goes and films their like ditch day, their day at the beach, and he makes like one of them out to be a hero and one of them out to be a bumbling buffoon. And the dude who makes him out to be he made out to be a hero is like, why did you do that? I bullied you. And like part of him is like, I don't know, maybe I wanted to like you. And then the other part of him is like, or maybe it just made a better film. Because like even then he's like, even the dumb filming a high school ditch day to the beach needs a hero and a villain to make that film more compelling. And to see him like work through that process. And like my favorite part of the movie is the very, 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 very last shot of the movie.
Oh, so good, yeah.
Which is,
and I almost don't want to. I didn't want to say it last week and spoil it for Dave, but hopefully he would have seen it by now if he listens back to this.
Yeah, it is the most like charming, like self-deprecating almost final shot of a movie I've ever seen. It is an absolute delight, coming off an absolutely wonderful final scene, which you talked about last week, and. God, good movie. It's just a good movie. It's just Spielberg, as I said. It's just him going into a movie, telling a very personal story. Like if you watched, there was a HBO documentary a few years ago about him, where like you can see all of this stuff is in that movie. It is very autobiographical, and it's just him telling a very personal story, very, very well, with just tremendous performances, top to bottom. It's a great movie. Very, very good.
Soak it up, because the guy is 76. I don't know how much longer he's going to keep making films, so he's sort of releasing films at like the rate of like 1 every year or 2 at the moment, still into his like mid-70s. So you know, I'm just saying, like, Spielberg's not going to be around forever, so everyone should enjoy him while we still have him.
I feel like it's one of those things that at the moment he stops doing films is when things will get bad for him. So I imagine this part of him is just he just wants to keep making films because that's probably what keeps him alive.
I thought you were going to say Armageddon.
No.
Like the entire planets.
But you get those people. Yeah. You get those people into their 70s and 80s who just keep working because it is kind of the thing that just keeps them alive. It's the thing that keeps them going. You know, my grandparents to some degree are like that. They're 76 at this point, and as long as they physically are able to, which I feel like is going to be for a while, they will just keep working because it's better than sitting around doing nothing. I feel maybe.
I am a very different person than that.
The other thing that you've got, Garrett, is National Treasure: Edge of History, which even before I went and quickly saw, I presumed this was some sort of like Disney Plus thing, because I guess is National Treasure, is that a Disney Plus thing in general?
Well, National Treasure, there was 2 National Treasure movies starring Nick Cage from the 2000s.
That's the ones, yes. Yeah.
And I enjoyed them for what they were. They were very enjoyable, silly adventure movies that you've seen a million times, but it's Nick Cage, so he elevates it a little bit with his manic Nick Cage energy. And I was like, oh, they rebooted it for Disney Plus for a TV show, which is among the worst things I've ever seen in my life. I hate this TV show with every fiber of my being.
Wow.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Like, the main character has literal detective vision. So the whole thing is that there's a bunch of puzzles, there's a treasure that needs to be hidden, there's a bunch of clues they all have to follow and chase, and Catherine Zeta-Jones is chasing them all over the world trying to kill them and stop them. But the main character...
I haven't seen her in anything for a while. Like, what does she look like these days? Is she still very Catherine Zeta-Jonesy, or is she kind of aged gracefully, or what's the deal with her at the moment?
I think she's doing pretty well for herself.
Yeah?
As a woman in her 50s.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking to myself, like, when was the last fucking time I saw Catherine Zeta-Jones in anything?
She was like the biggest thing around sort of like the mid to late 90s. And then, God, what was, like, I can't even think kind of early 2000s what she was doing. The last thing I can think off the top of my head was the one with her and Sean Connery. What was that? Entrapment? She probably did something after that, but that's the last thing I can think of.
The last significant thing I remember seeing her in was The Terminal. I'm sure she's done a lot of stuff since then, but I nothing that kind of immediately jumps to mind. I think she was in that Tom Cruise Rock of Ages movie, you know, like the rock karaoke thing that was a stage play that they made into a movie.
I saw that movie.
Yeah, it was alright, I suppose.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, I'm not sure what she's done since then, right? What she's been doing.
She shouldn't have done this, I'll tell you that much, Jack.
Well, I don't know, maybe a pay packet might tell you different, Garrett, but go on, my friend.
Because, yeah, they come across a bunch of puzzles and mysteries, and what literally happens is the main character, Jess, like, goes inside her mind palace. The thing she's meant to be looking pops out of the environment and she solves the puzzle with video game detective vision. And I'm just
no.
Like, part of this
Hitman vision.
I was going to say, part of this
Hitman vision.
Oh my God.
Like, there's part of that where I was about to go, well, that kind of sounds like what Cumberbatch was doing in Sherlock with the whole Mind Palace thing, and then it went too far in that direction.
But like, and then all of a sudden you see the barcode on the back of her head.
Yeah, at least Cumberbatch, at least like Sherlock is always like, you know, XYZIC and put A and B together to form a logical conclusion. Whereas she like goes into her detective vision mind palace and she's like, if you turn it 3 ways this way, 4 ways that way, and then look at the lines, they line up, and that tells you about an ancient South American culture with 2 rivers, but it's not about that, it's about the different thing because that's a mystery. I'm like, how do you know these things? How are you
Garrett,
aware?
Can I re-pitch you the show? What if she was a tiny fox, right? And she was building a manual with all these instructions.
Oh. Don't you start, Jack.
Even I wouldn't taunt him with that, Jack. That is the praise.
No, I just wanted you to start beefing again.
It really is the tunic of Disney Plus shows. And like,
I have let go, all right?
Listen, if the show was really stupid and embraced being really stupid, there's probably some fun to be had.
So if it had Nick Cage?
If it did have Nick Cage, it only has Harvey Keitel and Justin Bartha from the movies in very small roles, and they kill off Harvey Keitel too, so...
What are we doing?
But, well, he's too busy doing insurance commercials, isn't he? So he ain't got time for that.
But, like, It is both like deathly self-serious and extremely stupid. And I don't know how it tries to be both, because if it was self-serious, it would probably be a little bit better, or if it just went all in on being just extremely dumb, which it is, it would probably be a little bit better. But it's like, oh, the fate of our lives are on the line. Let me go into my detective mission. That's just it's stupid. It's just, every plot development, every twist and turn, everything that happens in the show is dumb, and it's the wrong kind of dumb. And I sat there for 10 episodes and watched every single bit of it.
I feel like your hit rate with Disney Plus shows is an all or nothing sort of thing. It's either you're all in or it's the worst thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there any Disney Plus show you've liked all the way through, Garrett? Because I feel like there's a few at the start you're like, I like this because it feels original, and then by the end it's sort of like tripe. So you're like, nah, fuck this.
I am a big Only Murders in the Building guy.
I mean, that's a great show, but is that exclusively Disney Plus, or is that like a?
I think it is.
It's
like network TV in America.
It's technically Hulu, and Disney Plus have it over here. So
sure,
it's not technically which Disney do own Hulu, or at least a large percentage of Hulu, but it's not a technical Disney Plus original. So I guess does that even count? I liked Loki.
No,
I thought Loki was a good show. So I unequivocally liked Loki,
except the train episode.
No, I liked the train episode. It felt very Doctor Who.
Yay. I love that train episode.
Yeah, this
National Treasure on a train. I'll watch that shit.
Like if you put the manic energy of Nick Cage in this, it's probably a little bit better because it's Nick Cage, of course. It's a little bit better. There's probably a good reason he's not doing it, and they've been trying.
If you put Martin Short and Steve Martin in it as well,
that would also make the show better because it would be less like self-serious if you put Martin Short and Steve Martin in it. If you like the original movies, which the only thing I've learned about the original movies from this is that it has an absolutely tremendous theme song. It's the highlight of the show. But if you like those original movies, don't touch this with a 10-foot pole. Stay away. Run.
Now that everyone's stopped listening to the podcast, tell us how you really feel.
I just
absolutely
like to think that everyone's running away now. It really emotionally touched me.
Love it.
The wrong kind of emotion, some would say. It really got to me emotionally. It made me angry.
Well, you know, good art is there to provoke emotional thought. And, you know, speaking of provoking emotional thought, Mark watched Puss in Boots this week.
Hey, all right. I'm here to tell you, all right, I was pleasantly surprised by how hard and how good Puss in Boots goes and just how good it is, right? Like, you would think that a sequel to a film which is a, like, spin-off of a series of films which were like 3 or 4 deep by this point, is the kind of like direct to DVD fodder that no one would really blink an eyelid at, and we'd all kind of go on about our day. But I have to tell you that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is, and I don't want to use this term, but I'm gonna. If we are to look at the Shrek cinematic universe as a thing,
we all do.
God.
We all put up on our Shrek cinematic universe corkboard as we rank our Shrek cinematic universe films, of which actually the first Puss in Boots pretty good.
It's all right. It's fine. It's totally fine as like a little spin-off. But this is up there with, you know, the original Shrek, and I like Shrek too. It's up there. It's astonishing how good this film is on a number of levels. First of all, artistic, like the visuals of it. It's clearly riffing off of Into the Spider-Verse. It's doing that kind of where a lot of shots are, parts of it are kind of running at say like 15 FPS and everything else is running at 60 FPS or whatever the kind of filming version of that looks like. I wouldn't know the technical terms, but it does that, but in a way where the film kind of bounces between a couple of different styles of animation. So you've got the kind of traditional DreamWorks visual flair, but then there are moments when it goes into this kind of like 2D, like almost kind of watercolor style, and it blends that with the sort of Into the Spider-Verse visual style as well during the kind of more climactic action sequences. And it blends between these, because you kind of think that if you're bouncing between all of these styles, that seems like it'd be quite jarring. But it does it without you even realizing it, and it's so fluid in how it approaches doing that. And it's just like as a visual spectacle, it's a marvel. I think it's one of the kind of just the best looking animated films I've ever seen. but then also, surprisingly, it's got quite a lot of depth to it. The general principle of the film is that Puss in Boots has lost 8 of his lives. He's, been the hero of the town, and he's gone around, and he's died in a number of ways, some of them more heroic than others. Then he's down to his last life, and he's still, got full of bravado, and no one can take me down. And he meets Death, and Death doesn't immediately come for him because he still has his one life, but he basically is chasing him down for the duration of the film. And this kind of incarnation of Death is tremendously well performed, and just like the executions of the physical embodiment of Death, I think is really well done here. And so, like, Puss in Boots, he has to. There's like a falling star, and so he goes on a chase for it because he wants to find the star, use it for a wish, and then get all of his lives back. But he, because of like this meeting with Death, he develops like a fear that he's never had before, the fear of death. And there's a bit later on where you see him running away, and he basically has a panic attack. And he has a bit where he's got like this therapy dog who is played by Harvey Gillian, who is Guillermo in What We Do in the Shadows, and really, really funny. And he basically acts as like a therapy dog for him and kind of brings him down. And like, for me, as someone who's had a panic attack in the past, I was not expecting something like this in a film like this to present something like this. And so, like, maybe it's just on a kind of personal level, but I found that was really well executed. And it's a very funny film across the board. Like, there's a character called the Ethical Bug, who is basically Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio, and he ends up being attached to, or like assigned to, one of the bad guys in the film, and I won't give more than that, but he basically gets to a point where he's like, you're a fucking monster, just I can't do anything with you. And it's an approach that you don't get with that type of character, which is really well paid off. There are jokes that have like just really good one-liners. There are jokes that kind of last throughout the duration of the film, and they pay off really well. And I think this is really worth checking out. It's by far the kind of most pleasant surprise I've had with what feels like would be a throwaway animation film. I think this is worth checking out.
I feel like that has been the universal reaction to everyone who's seen it. Is like, no, it's actually good. It's not like good for a Puss in Boots movie. It's actually good.
Yeah.
I did not think that Puss in Boots would help me to cope with my own mortality, which is what it sounds like that movie is doing.
It kind of is a little bit. It really is.
Can you fill me in on Ray Winston and Olivia Colman being married bears in the movie?
Well, yeah. So they have like, there's a bunch of different characters that are chasing after the star, and there's a family. There's basically the Goldilocks and the three bears. So you've got Florence Pugh as Goldilocks, and yeah, you've got
man, what a combo!
Olivia Colman and Ray Winston as Mama and Papa Bear, and they all basically sound like they're from East London, and it's like, all right, fucking governor, all right, what are we doing here? And it's Ray Winston is much better cast in sort of this role than fucking a number of
any role where he has to do an accent, because he is abysmal at all of them.
Yes. Yeah, this film rocks. It really does. I'd strongly recommend it.
I want to watch this fucking movie now. I did not go into this podcast thinking I would come out wanting to watch a Puss in Boots movie in 2023.
The wildest thing is, like, the end of the film, you kind of get the sense that, they're actually going to do a Shrek 5, and I'm actually fucking hyped for it. It's crazy. It's crazy.
There'll be a sad, melancholy version of All Star in the trailer,
and then there'll be one lone voice at the back of the cinema going, "It's a fucking Digimon song."
Oh dear. The other thing that myself and my partner watched over the last week or so is we watched Severance, which I know that you guys spoke about when it came out.
Some would say the best show of 2022.
This film fucking rules. Like, from the first opening 10 minutes of the way that this film thing is shot, you kind of feel like, all right, this feels like it's doing something different. And let me tell you, every time I got to the credits of each episode and I saw directed by Ben Stiller, I went, what what is going on here? That makes no goddamn sense whatsoever.
National Treasure's Ben Stiller, right, Garrett?
Yeah, every time you'd have to be, wait, that Ben Stiller? And then you check, and it's like, that Ben Stiller?
That Ben Stiller. The one thing that I think, because I was watching, when I get into something, I usually go and find a bunch of interviews with the performers and, hear them talk about the show or kind of find like behind the scenes stuff. And one of the things I was seeing with a bunch of interviews with Adam Scott is people were talking about like, oh, were you worried that people would not kind of understand what the show is? It's very high concept, that they might be a bit confused about what's going on. And I was kind of like... I was confused by that because while the concept you could describe as high concept, I think the actual execution of the story is not that difficult to follow. Like, other than the first episode where it kind of fucks around with the time, but that's still only within a couple of hours. The rest of the show is fairly linear to follow, and I think that while it has that great high concept about the idea of, being able to separate your work life and your personal life, and, other things about memories and detachment and how to different ways to deal with grief and loss, I think all of that is done in a way where you really don't have to kind of be sitting there stroking your chin going, what does this mean? I think the actual execution of the story is done in a fairly kind of simplistic way. It just has this kind of great high concept. And I think one of the other things as well is just it's the way that it's shot that I think also lends to this idea of it being this kind of high concept show, because you can clearly see the way the lumen, like when they're in the severed floor, the way that it's shot is clearly shot very different to the way that like the kind of normal world is shot. There's a lot of like very still shots, very kind of particular angles in the way that characters are framed, and I think it's just that's all done with a very specific intent and direction. And I think it's just like Ben Stiller has a visual flair for this sort of thing that I think took everyone by surprise. And just across the board, I just think, everyone is just on their A game, just incredible performances. The one thing I will say, though, there were two issues that I had that came in the last episode. I thought that the spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, I thought the way that they had the reveal at the end that Gemma wasn't dead, but the fact that we as the viewer had already found this out 2 episodes ago, the fact that they made that the cliffhanger of the show, it kind of like lessened the impact for me, because it's like, well, we already found that out two episodes ago. So like the fact that Adam Scott's character is finding out now to end the season, I feel like that would have been far more impactful if we as well found that out to end that first season. So I don't know why they decided to do it that way. Obviously, there's the bit that happens where you have him and his wife on the 7th floor when she's giving him a wellness package or something. I can't remember what it's called. So there's that bit there for the viewer, but I think that you could have easily done something with that or removed that to have more impact for like the end of season finale. And the other thing as well, now maybe there's somewhere that I missed during the course of the show, but like as far as my understanding of the show is, when they're in their innie form, when they're on the 7th floor, they're basically, the moment they start working in that role, it's like they've been born, and this is what they know, and anything in the outside world, they have no kind of understanding or have no idea how to register. And I lost my, because I think they do a really good job of explaining certain bits and pieces to make it kind of, just to make everything tie with logic. But how Irving's character, A, knows what a car looks like, and B, would have some sort of understanding of how to drive it across town, I lost my sense of disbelief at that point. And I don't know if it's something happens during the show where he mentions a car, or you get at least something there to kind of give you the implication that he would know how to drive a car. But that bit lost me there, and I was just thinking, why would you not do this where like Christopher Walken's character just lives across the road or something and eliminate that issue? Because I couldn't get out of my head as he was driving. I was like, how the fuck does he know what a car is? That doesn't make any sense to me. That's the one thing that really stuck in my craw, and it was in the last episode, unfortunately.
But they don't remove like every single thing they know or have experienced. It's just their memories outside work, which also doesn't remove their muscle memory.
I guess, but that's kind of.
But I think that's kind of like the interesting thing that the show examines. It's like it's the thing they'll probably go into more in later seasons about like, well, what is the implication of removing those memories? It's like, what is actually removed? How much of like your muscle memory or like deep memory experience and all that kind of stuff? And that, I imagine that is the stuff they'll delve further into the deeper they get into the show, as they kind of delve into like the ethical and moral implications of all of that even more. But I do think it's a more interesting question to be like, well, how does he know how to drive a car? Instead of being like, how dare he drive a car?
I wasn't framing it like that. I was more certainly with the first kind of way you approached that. And I do think that there are certain aspects throughout the season where you can see that there is a bit of crossover between the innie and the outie, where they are doing, I mean, that is kind of like the crux of Adam Scott's character, where he, like the in version of him and the out version of him are essentially doing the same thing, but, you know, not obviously aware that either version of them is doing what the other version's doing. So it's like, okay, well, on a subconscious level, what are they aware of, if they're aware of anything? So it's just kind of little aspects like that, which, yeah, I imagine they will kind of dive into more on the second season. But just a phenomenal show. Yeah, I love the way it looks. It's got such a kind of visual style to it. Talking of like great intro sequences and theme songs, you know, it sounds like a Kid A era Radiohead song. So like thumbs up from me there. And at points, honestly, the way that, like, in the first time that you see Adam Scott kind of walking through the corridor and going between the different corridors, and with, like, what happens in the intro sequence, I got strong, like, Stanley Parable vibes, and I was thinking, maybe we could do live-action Stanley Parable.
It basically is live-action Stanley Parable.
The elements of it.
It obviously takes a very different approach, but it's very much like commenting on office culture. Like the setting is like lifted from the Stanley Parable nearly identically.
Yeah. And I fucking love Zach Cherry. I think Dylan just those little small office perks, you know, that's what keeps you going. God bless him and his little finger puppet thingamajig.
The thing that fascinates me most about the show is like the depiction of the passage of time. Where it's like you don't really think about how it is to be the innie, and you're literally always at work, because the way that works is the second they go into that elevator, they don't wake up until the next day, which is an instantaneous moment for them. So like they get into the elevator, ding, walk right back out, it's the next day. So they are literally always, they don't sleep, they don't get time outside work, they're always working. And to think about that, like just from the passage of time perspective, and even there was one episode where he's out sick and he misses a day, and like the innie doesn't know that. It's like, oh, you weren't here yesterday, and he's just like, oh, I wasn't.
Was I not? What? Okay.
Just like that complete lack of agency over your own existence is such a fascinating thing to delve into.
Yeah, great show. Severance, thumbs up. In my my reoccurring bit of being a year late on all the good things, but I'm glad I watched it. All right, that is it for what we've seen this week. We're going to bounce over to what we've been playing, and Garrett, I want to jump over to you because we'll get to it in the news. But hey, that Metroid Prime remaster that we were thinking was going to come out at some point maybe this year, Nintendo just shadow dropped it. Just went, here you go, you fucks, enjoy. And it's out there in the wild now. And how are you finding it? And is this your first time with Metroid Prime?
It is my first time with it because I didn't have a GameCube, and I did buy the trilogy on the Wii U eShop, but played like 20 minutes of it because I'm me. As you said, the fact that this has been rumored for like 5 straight years that they have this game done, and not only do they have it done, like it's sitting in the Nintendo vault waiting to be released, it's been finished for ages by all accounts, and they've just sat there, and every Nintendo Direct has gone by where people are like, Metroid Prime? And Nintendo has been like, no. And now you finally get this one. And as you said, not only did they announce it, but they shadow dropped it. It's just the funniest way Nintendo could possibly have done it.
But it's not even just them. Like, in the last couple of weeks, you've had that and Goldeneye. Like, those two and obviously we knew Goldeneye was coming at some point, but those two games, like two of the sort of kind of holy grails in terms of like remasters that people have been waiting for years. Just to be like, here, there you are. You know, just go. There, you were waiting for it. It's there. You can go download. You don't need to watch the stream anymore. It's there. Go download it right now. It's insane. It's such a like, you know, games aren't the first platform or service to do this sort of thing. You know, music has been doing it more and more over the last sort of 10 years or so in the kind of digital age, but it's becoming more frequent with video games, but it still kind of takes me by surprise, you know. And I was kind of watching this Metroid Prime reveal thinking, why do I get the feeling they're going to say it's available at the end of this video? And lo and behold, there it is. Anyway, how are you finding it? How does it play? How does it feel?
But yeah, usually that's done with like smaller games, you know, like Xbox did it with Hi-Fi Rush, which is like the kind of game you shadow drop. Turns out it's excellent and people love it, but it's like it's a small experience that it's like, yeah, we do it's on an unknown IP. It is the kind of thing you don't need to give a ton of lead time to. Whereas they're just like, that game you wanted for 5 fucking years? Here you go. This is right now. I didn't play it originally, and I do admire just how much they've done to it. Like I think there's been a lot of criticism of recent Nintendo like remastered versions where it is like they hit the widescreen button and the 1080p button and then ship it for $60, not $40. Not to trivialize them, because it does take more effort than that, people. But that is like the kind of implication of what they've been doing for like the Mario remaster trilogy and stuff like that, and Skyward Sword as well last year. Or the year before.
Hey, we'll get to GoldenEye as well. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. But they have completely overhauled a lot of the textures in this game. If this was released as what Metroid Prime 4 looks like, I don't think people would really bat an eyelid as a game that looks like this on Switch in particular. I do think that Metroid Prime 4 will end up being the Breath of the Wild cross-gen Switch 2 game, but we'll see how that goes. But I get it. I played about an hour of it because realistically I've been playing Hades all week because Barry streamed it again and he spread the curse to me once again. So I cannot not... Anytime I watch somebody play Hades, I can't not play Hades. It's a sickness. But I've been dabbling in this, and I'll play more at the weekend because we'll talk about the Nintendo Direct more in a minute, because there's more stuff in that Direct that I'd like to get to, particularly demos. But it's just the atmosphere of that game, the feel of that game, and now how it looks, because it is probably like one of the better looking Switch games now. Just everything about that package. It is. I get it. I get why people have obsessed over this game since it was released on the GameCube. And you just run around scanning things, which in theory sounds really boring. You're just walking around with turn it on your visor mode, being like, "Tell me about this plant helmet. How is it going?" And then you just stand in the rain as the rain drips off the visor, and then you occasionally get the like best thing in the history of video games, which is when you see the flash of Samus's face and the reflection of the visor, and it's like, that is phenomenal. You are really good at making games. And then you just start exploring and you start wandering around, and you read like it's just thumbs up. I'm excited to play a lot more of it over the next week, but I get it. I get why people have been like constantly shouting at this to be released by Nintendo.
I'll be curious to see more from you and other people that haven't played this before and come into this, because I wonder how many people really realize that like Metroid Prime, while it visually looks like a first-person shooter, really in no way acts like a first-person shooter out of the fact that you can, you know, fire a gun in a first-person perspective. Like it plays more like a kind of an adventure puzzle game, more so than a first-person shooter. And I'll be curious to kind of see as you get further into it how, and you know, I haven't played Metroid Prime in God knows how long. I've loaded it up on a couple of devices in the last couple of years just to see if I can get the thing running, but you know, I do feel like this is the version that I want to properly play, but I haven't, you know, got around to it yet because there's 400 other things out at the moment. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what you think of it over the next couple of weeks, and at some point I'm going to get around to it as well. So just that little bit that you posted earlier with the rain coming down and splashing on the visor, just it's those little things that really kind of take a game to the next level. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I've seen posts being like, if you tilt the gun down, the water flows differently than if you tilt the gun up. Like, that's the level of detail. Retro and I think Iron Galaxy worked on this port. And it's a port. It's not a port. Like, it's weird. It's like the foundational gameplay is, by all accounts, like beat for beat the exact same, but the obviously they've upgraded the visuals in pretty much every capacity. If you look at side by sides, it's like they've completely redone all the textures. It looks like a modern game. If you look real closely, it's like, all right, it's still a GameCube game, but like in the amount of work they've done, it has like transformed it into feeling like a modern game. And yeah, I'm excited to play through it, because it does feel very much, as you were talking about, it's not an FPS game. It's more a more literal 3D translation of Super Metroid than you'd probably expect when you think about a lot of what Super Metroid is, and they translated that into 3D instead of like recontextualizing it. And yeah, it's a cool game. I've already reached a stage where it's like, you know, you reach a door and it's like, I don't have the morph ball yet. I can't go through that little tiny slot. And they do the wonderful video game thing. It's like you do the first level where you have all the missiles and the charge beam and the fucking draggy magnet hook thing. You have all that, and then she just gets shot once and it all disappears on her way out of that planet. It's like, well, back to just pew pew.
That is a Metroidvania.
I do appreciate, because like when I play Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, they're going to start me at level 0 with a bunch of shite that I had in the last game that I won't have now, and that's just games. That's the way they have to do it, because they can't really.
Do you think they will though? Because it is a carryover of it's a Part 2. I don't know if they'll have you start over at 0.
But they will take away a lot of what, because they can't have you start where you finish the last one, or else like the game would be ridiculous. But maybe ridiculous in a good way, so maybe they should do it.
Or maybe a ghost will fly into you and go, no, I'll take all of this now. Who the fuck knows?
But at least they do contextualize it. They are like, this is why she does not have all her cool stuff.
Yeah. I'll stick with the remastering. I know that you and Dave spoke about Goldeneye the week before last, and so I just wanted to kind of jump on board and talk a little bit about that, because I've been playing the Xbox Game Pass version and the cancelled remake that popped up online about 2 years ago that I forgot about, and then the day before these games went live, decided that, you know what, this is probably the time that I should actually go and play this now. So yeah, the most fascinating thing about the Game Pass version specifically, because I'm not touching that Switch version, because I think without playing it just sounds like any time that you try to play an N64 game on anything that isn't an N64 controller, it is possible, but it's just not worth the fucking hassle.
You just gotta buy that wireless N64 controller from Nintendo.
Yeah, you would, if there was more than 4 of those out in the wild to buy.
I have one. That's all that matters. I've never used it, but I have one.
That's you are part of the problem, Garrett.
I enable Nintendo in every single way.
Yeah, well, we all do, in fairness. But yeah, as soon as I started hearing about the horror show that was the Switch version, I was like, you know what, I'll stick with the Game Pass version.
Not
and in fairness,
that bad. I say as a person who has been completely desensitized to horrible experiences on Switch at this stage. It's perfectly playable, but it feels old. It doesn't feel new.
Yeah, the thing is, as soon as you start playing like the Game Pass version, it just makes sense. Like, it just, as a twin stick shooter, everything fits in place. I hit R3, I crouch, I'm not even having to look at the controls. Everything registers for me in my brain in that kind of muscle memory way.
I, for one, am nostalgic for the age of games where you did not know what any given button did. You just had to start guessing.
In fairness, I've played like a whole bunch of like Sega Saturn games and like other bits and pieces, so when you jump down the emulation path, you run into that kind of headache. But I'm more than happy for Goldeneye here to just like immediately click and make sense. So the most fascinating thing is the idea that, all right, here's the selling point for this version is that, hey, this is Goldeneye in 4K. And it's like, all right, well, what does that entail? That means that you're taking these 25-year-old textures that did not look that great to begin with and are blowing them up to 4K. And, you know, the most fascinating thing about this game is the development behind it, and is just the way that it's going to be. About like, what could Microsoft do? What could Nintendo do? What agreements did they have to come to? Like, it's a fucking, you know, joint promotional New Japan, All Japan show. Who's going over? Right. Well, if that person goes over, this blah blah blah. It's like who, you know, and we can see obviously, you know, Switch got the Switch Online, the online multiplayer, and I guess, Microsoft like, hey, yeah, we'll take the kind of 4K resolution, but it's like, that is not a game that needs to be blown up to 4K unless you're going to do, a full-blown remake, which obviously we have the 2010 cancelled remake. And playing some of that cancelled remake, it's probably the equivalent of like if you're playing the Metroid remaster at the moment. It's like, it's not by any means, the most kind of graphically intense looking game, but it does what it needs to do, which is take that game, which by that point was about 13, 14 years old, and makes it look really nice, really clean. All the models have been remade for like 2010 standards, and it keeps that feeling of what makes GoldenEye what it is. And for me, having not played GoldenEye in God knows how long now, my concern that you have when you play older games is like, my understanding of what I know about this game, is that based in the game actually being good, or is it the rose-tinted nostalgia glasses? And playing through GoldenEye again, it's like, no, about 80% of this game is just a really well-crafted game that had no right to end up being as good as it was, because Rare were doing this at the time when 3D games were just about to start being a thing. 3D shooters weren't really a thing. Like, I guess Doom is technically, but also not, because of the way it was developed. It is technically a 2D game. It had no right to function and be as successful as it was. But there are certain aspects of it in 2023's eyes now where it's like, you know what? The level design isn't actually that great in some aspects. Like, there is no reason that you should know the way I end this level is I have to shoot through that window and jump out of it. There is nothing there to telegraph that is how I end the level. There's nothing to telegraph on the Frygate level that how I end the level is I go back onto the boat that I started the level with. There's nothing there to tell you that or to signify that. So I know these things because obviously I've played this game a whole bunch of times, but someone that's coming to this for the first time, the first few levels are fine. They're pretty kind of linear. But when you get to the bits where, and obviously we were seeing on the stream I was doing, like, if you need a key card, the key cards in this game, you can't really see them. And like with the cancelled remake version, it will do a thing where it will put like a small ring around it. Now, I wasn't doing it for some reason on the level I was on, but again, this is a cancelled remake, it isn't the fully like finished version. But it would at least kind of highlight that if the key card was on the floor, it will kind of show you a small ring. Even if you're in a different room, it will do that kind of Hitman thing where it just kind of, will get you in the right direction. But obviously, if you're playing like the original GoldenEye or even the Xbox remake that's live, if you're missing a key card and it's on the floor, you've got no fucking way to see where that thing is, and you are going to spend up to 20 minutes just hovering around every square inch of that area to hopefully just kind of stumble across it. And in those bits there, the game really shows its age and a lack of understanding of how games would develop and how the kind of quality of life features that we'd expect in a game in like 2023. So those bits there, the game does show its age, but I do think that in terms of keeping that feel, that tone, feeling like a James Bond game, a lot of it I think is the soundtrack, which I knew at the time was excellent, but hearing it again throughout, like, my god, that soundtrack is incredible and adds so much to the experience. And then watching GoldenEye the film for the first time in a while and seeing how they were able to kind of tie the film and the game, and they do take a couple of diversions here and there, but I can imagine seeing the film and getting to play the game 2 years later and having that experience convert very well for me, or translate very well to a video game. I think that, yeah. And look, the Game Pass version, the surface level, like, there's so much Z fighting going on and bits where two parts of geometry are clashing and it looks horrendous. Past that, the game plays very well. It feels smooth. It feels right. And, if you come to this game and you haven't thought about GoldenEye for 20, 25 odd years, and you just see like, oh, yeah, GoldenEye, I played that when I was a kid. I loved that. You'll probably have a blast of it. If you're someone like me who has kind of been knowing about, like, there was the cancelled remake and this version's coming and what does this look like? What is the development hell to get this to the point it is now? There is a bit of disappointment. I do get that. I do feel that. but it's still, I don't know, it still retains enough of what GoldenEye is for me to look past the somewhat major graphical issues that it has. And I guess the biggest problem, really, and I not many people brought this up, but in 2-3 years' time, there's a good chance that this game is not going to exist digitally again, and there's no way to own this thing physically. So it does feel like it's a, let's just get this thing out there for a while, and then we get rid of it, and then we all go about our merry ways. But like, if you've got the physical copy of Rare Replay, you can't own this on that. And look, Switch Online and Game Pass, they'll be around for a while, but feasibly at some point those two services could go down at some point. And even if the game stays up that whole time, just that thing will not be there forever. And that means at some point we'll be back to square one again, and that's just insane. But hey, at least a version of it is out there. So I don't know if either of you got around to playing any more of it. Jack, I don't know if you've played any of it so far.
Well, the GoldenEye remaster.
Yeah.
No, I watched you playing on the stream the other night. I haven't delved back in. I think the only way I probably would play it is if we were playing online. Like, I played through the campaign a few times a few years ago. I feel like I don't necessarily need to get kind of reacquainted with it as much, but if we had like an online tournament and stuff like between us, I'd definitely get involved with that. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, my interest isn't particularly massive to go back and delve back into the single player.
Yeah, I'm the same. I played through the first level, and I'm like, the gunplay is good, but the level design and what you're actually doing is boring and bad. It's just bad. And I think it's bad in 2023 eyes as a person who hasn't played it. You always have to put the caveat, it was great for its time. I understand, but games have moved on from it for a reason. It was revolutionary when you were a child, but it's just not particularly fun to play through now as you walk around doing boring objectives looking for key cards as enemies spawn constantly. But the sound design of the guns, tremendous. They nailed that.
Yeah. They got some good guns, definitely, besides the clop. Awful. Speaking of awful, I don't like Pokemon Violet. I'm just saying it. I am not enjoying this game at all.
You picked a week as well. The week God. Dave isn't here to back you up. You're just coming on here on the two Pokemon defenders, and you're going to take them on.
I am Jon Snow. Like, I got my swords out and I'm ready. All right. I don't like this thing.
Why?
I'm wandering around aimlessly, not enjoying anything. And I think this is the thing more than anything else, right? Because even if you take out the numerous issues in terms of performance, where, and we've spoken at length and ad nauseum about different characters and different frame rates and blah blah blah, whatever. I just think that world, as in general, visually sucks. I think it's a visually bland as fuck looking game, and I just don't want to look at it. Everything about it annoys me. So many of the new character designs, outside of the ones that they presented, look so fucking uninspiring and unoriginal, and I just am not fucking interested in any of them at all. There are parts when you're walking past like a cliffside and the texture warping is, I end up spending 5 minutes just going back and forth and seeing how this texture warps in a way that it should obviously not be doing. The Terra, whatever the new gimmick they added to the battle mechanics is just a different version of how they made the Pokemon really large in the last game. But that at least had the joy of it because they got really large and I enjoyed the spectacle of that. But it, as a mechanic, it doesn't add anything new for me and isn't particularly interesting. The towns are boring as fuck. There's nothing to do in them. I just am not finding anything about this that is vibing with me at all. And maybe it might change a little bit as I get further in and I get different ways to explore the environment. I think what part of the issue that I have as well is that it takes like 2 hours to get to the point where you kind of feel like the game lets you off the leashes and lets you actually just kind of get going. And for me and Pokemon, I want to be 10 minutes max before I'm out in the world and I'm just doing my fucking thing. The fact that it takes 2 hours and then you're in the college and nothing goes on there. The one thing I will say is I like that it kind of gives you like 3 critical paths and you can do them kind of whatever direction you want. And I've yet to really fully explore into that. So, I'll see what happens with that, I guess. But I just think this game visually just is so boring and bland. And I physically hate looking at this game. And I don't remember the last time I looked at a game and I just went, I don't want to look at this thing. I don't want to play it because I don't want to look at it. And that's not good because I need to look at it to play it.
Have you looked at the textures
it's not
on the
vibing with me.
clothes? Have you looked at those textures, Mark?
No. And the Pokemon look awesome in the game.
They look no different to the Pokemon in the last fucking one.
That
again,
is not true.
The designs of the new ones are
great.
They're like
amazing.
I hope you get swarmed by a household of mousehold.
That's fine. Bring them on. I'll destroy every single last one of them.
You would not.
Only Gimme Ghoul. Gimme Ghoul is the only good one.
Weren't you like a big Lechonk defender in Game of the Year? Have you now turned on Lechonk too?
No. I said a minute ago, outside of the ones that they previewed like before the game come out, those ones I'm all good with. But everything I've seen that's new are they're just like just fucking small little balls of nothing. I've met like 6 different Pokemon that all look the fucking same, and they're all useless.
Heavy shot at you guys.
How dare you about the Knuckle Stack line, by the way? How dare you about the Knuckle Stack line? That is a great line of Pokemon. I'm
not feeling it. I'm gonna stick with it. Like, you know, I can kind of sink half an hour into it there and then because you switch your brain off and you just kind of wander around. But it's just not vibing with me at all. And I'm not like this person that had kind of grown out the series. You know, I sunk a good 40 to 50 hours into Sword and Shield. Like, I was still there with Pokemon, but this one, Dave with Pokemon Snap, except I'm not going to lose my cartridge for 6 months.
But you did hate Legends too, yeah. So you just not like.
I didn't know. No,
you were
I
like,
did not.
This is a horrible game that
Legends.
has no right to be in Game of the Year. What are you talking about? You should hate yourselves for
Garrett,
enjoying the game.
Do not come on here and spout these falsehoods. This is not true. I did not hate Pokemon Legends. I thought that it was a pretty good reinvention of that series that shows its hand for about the first 4 hours and then kind of loses a bit of steam. But I didn't hate it. I thought it was a perfectly fine, serviceable game for trying something new. And I remember I said this, and I quote, I'd be very curious to see and interested to see what they do for a second version of this, because this feels like a proof of concept that they'll only get better at with the next one. So, fuck you.
I don't know. You see, my thing is, I think at the core, it's still a game where you walk around, catch Pokemon, and do battles, which I've enjoyed since 1997. So I'm just there for that. For as much as they reinvent it, it is still like the thing this series has always been is ultimately the thing I enjoy about it. No matter how they like reinvent it or take it into different worlds, I just like wandering around and catching things and fighting people.
And there are elements of that I'm still enjoying, but there is something just about the way this game looks that is just annoying me. And I've tried for the longest time, and I still like to think that I'm not any kind of graphics whore. I'm not a graphics fiend. You know, nothing has to look like God of War for it to be the game of the year. But man, there's just so much about this thing that either corners were cut or they were too ambitious. And it could just be as simple the case that they were too ambitious and they couldn't get everything they wanted to get in. Or it could be the Switch hardware, blah, 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 blah. I just think this game visually is lacking in so many ways. And then on top of that, you're in a classroom with 10 kids animating in different frames. And even seeing it in person was so much worse than, you know, the clips that I'd seen of it. It's so much worse. I'm going to stick with it for a while, and if my opinions and my feelings change, I'll come back on the show and I'll say, but this is where I'm at this moment in time, and Game of the Year 2022, this is not. And Soundtrack of the Year, it certainly isn't. I don't know what the fuck you two are smoking. It's just got nothing. There's nothing.
Oh, you're so wrong about that. That's because you haven't played into the game and heard all the different bits of music and
I would like to think that if a game is going to qualify for Soundtrack of the Year from the fucking opening, like, moments...
No, come on,
the opening area theme is an
sorry.
absolute banger, too, so you get out of here. The music isn't good at the start. Monster.
Nah, give me Neon White, thank you very much.
Oh yeah, what, you mean that one that lost and got kicked out before you even made the final?
Hey, I know in my heart...
I would have gotten kicked out a third time.
I know in my heart what is to be true.
Garrett, let's kick it out again now.
Get out of here. Xana Blade. Xenoblade. Xenoblade.
Jack, you have made me download Hitman again, which means I will be streaming this next week.
That's what I was looking to do.
Which is going to be a disaster because I've not played Hitman since Hitman 3 came out. You've been playing more Hitman Freelancer.
Yeah, I don't have much more to say about Hitman
It's
Freelancer.
good. Is this what I'm hearing?
It's fucking great. I love it. It's a completely different take on Hitman. You learn to do different things in the levels. It encourages you to explore, and there's loads of bits and pieces that you can do. It's just a lot of fun. It really is. And yeah, I don't have anything fresh to say that I didn't already say last week. I'm just having a great time in Hitman. Just when I think I'm done with like needing to play any more Hitman, they just drag me right the fuck back into Hitman again. It's really unbelievable. It's my sickness, but I kind of don't care because I want it.
Should I, when I dive back into this, should I like just play some normal Hitman to kind of get myself back up to speed with mechanics, or can I just dive into Freelancer and
straight in?
Yeah,
because the mechanics and stuff you'll kind of get used to anyway. You would just automatically get used to it after playing it just for a little bit. So there's no problem there as far as I'm concerned for you. You just get straight
other
back
than
on
me
board.
being terrible at it.
What, you're terrible at Hitman?
I wouldn't say my problem with Hitman is I lose patience really quickly. I'm very much a kind of go sort of player with my video games. I don't like stealth. Like my long aversion to Metal Gear Solid is well documented, and I've been able to get past that with Hitman because there are elements of it where you can just kind of go in guns blazes, and that's part of the fun sometimes. And levels aren't particularly that long that, you can find ways to brute force them and blah, blah, blah. But like in general, I can't. My patience for those sorts of things and my attention span isn't that long. Like I will do a level once and then I won't come back to that game for like 3 or 4 days, and then I have to muster myself up. And it's not because I think it's a bad game. It's purely a me thing. It's just how I've always been with Hitman.
Oh, mate. Like, the joy to me of Hitman is like you finish the level and then you figure out different ways to fuck around with the level. Like, that's, to me, that's like one of the main joys of the game. It's just never-ending fun that you can have in it, because there's always like different tasks and different challenges and different ways to play the game. Like it's weird because I love roguelites, and there is an element of this World of Assassination trilogy that has had that like roguelite element to it, but because I for whatever reason, because it's not officially a roguelite, my brain hasn't been able to register that. Or maybe I don't enjoy being around the environments and just the core mechanics as much as you do. And again, it's not an issue with the game, it absolutely is me.
Furious hatred of bald
but
people.
I am hey now I was a big old fan of Steve Austin back in the day, all right? Now, obviously, The Rock lost everything when he lost the hair as well, but that's a you problem, Garrett, as far as I'm concerned.
Mark, why are you coming on here to take down Hitman and Pokemon? Like,
I'm not taking Hitman down!
I just can't actually believe the slander here.
No, right. Like, Pokemon, the issues of Pokemon, that is the game's fault. The issues I have with Hitman, that is my fault, and I accept that, all right? So don't come in here, don't use my words against me in a way like no. We'll not
Don't
have
quote
this.
me back to me.
But I didn't say that. You can't quote me with saying I didn't say. And regardless, you get to point and laugh at me when I stream this next week. So you're going to win in the end.
I don't know though, because I feel like I'm just going to be watching you streaming, going, "Oh god, this game! Can't even look at it. He's got a barcode on the back of his head."
Hey, I like the visuals of Hitman. Like the moment the way that the bio opens up, I remember saying at the time on Game of the Year that I thought that bit was beautiful.
It's a real good game.
I remember the things I say on this show, alright? I know what I said. But yeah, Freelancer, good, right?
Freelancer's good. Freelancer's really good. Play it.
Have you not played anything else at all?
No. I've just been playing Freelancer. I'm not even gonna lie and say
Where are you with Hi-Fi Rush?
I played maybe an hour more of Hi-Fi Rush, and I really liked it. But yeah, I haven't done much more in Hi-Fi Rush, but it's a wicked game.
Yeah,
and I really enjoy it, and I will go back and finish it at some stage. But yeah, I got into a point where the combat was getting a bit like, okay, now this is getting tough. Like you're having to learn. I feel like every time you go a bit further forward, you have to learn some more mechanics, and then some more mechanics, and then some more mechanics. You know what I mean? I just went back into the cozy and warm embrace of Hitman.
What setting are you playing like for both of you? What setting are you playing Hi-Fi Rush on?
I haven't touched it yet, so 0 setting.
Oh, you've not touched it at all yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's as Jack mentioned,
Normal?
the things on the lists. It's on the list, but I haven't got to it yet.
All right.
Yeah, like, is there like... I think when I started it, there were like 4 options, right? There was like easy, normal, hard, and then like some sort of variant on hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing it on normal.
Because I went for the hard setting, because I presumed that I sort of used the Guitar Hero logic, where I'm better on hard mode than I am on normal mode, because I have like a sense of rhythm, so I'm better playing on the beat of like what the game actually is asking for than trying to do like an easier version of that. And for the most part, it works fine, but there's a bit where you get to, and I don't know if you're here yet, but there's like this kind of samurai motherfucker who, like, there are certain enemies in the game where it'll get to a bit where they stop, and then you have to parry a number of beats in a specific rhythm. And with this Samurai one in particular, I have struggled just about every time, because the rhythm that it's asking for, I swear I'm doing the rhythm that it wants, but there's something about... There are certain times when the game wants you to do like a parry, or wants you to do a kind of button combination on a rhythm, and it feels like there are times with certain things where the time between when it introduces what the rhythm is and when it wants you to start the rhythm, I feel like it's different with certain implementations of that against like some of the enemies, where it feels like you have... Instead of a whole beat to get prepared, you have like half a beat, and I keep getting thrown off by that, and I don't know if that's like me just being shit with my rhythm, or the game is actually giving you kind of more time in this instance and less time in this instance, and it's throwing me off. I don't know. I haven't seen anyone else like make that observation, so it could just be me and I'm shit. But that's kind of been the one thing, and I think some of the levels are a bit too long. That's the only other issue. Other than that, great game. Hi-Fi Rush. I like it.
Huh. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, what's like the favorite tune that you've encountered in the game so far?
Oh, no, more boss fights should have 9 Inch Nails. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Let's say.
I don't... Niner messaged me to tell me that there's a song towards the end of the game. He didn't tell me what one specifically, but he said to keep an eye out for it. So I don't know what's coming, but I was trying to kind of go through my head of like music from that era and what it could possibly be, but I could be here all day speculating. So
you know that Zvan is in the game, right?
I do know Zwan is in it, yes. Yeah.
The 20-year anniversary of that fucking Zvan album, which is it's pretty good, I would say. The
is it now like the only way to actually consume that music in a kind of digital form if you don't have the physical CD?
Yeah, I don't actually believe it's available in any other format.
I mean, it's probably on YouTube, but you know, everything's on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. You just can't actually like buy it. I don't think legally, or like I don't think it's on Spotify or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that were on YouTube, the Nintendo Direct from when was this? Wednesday night?
Yes.
What is it? Yeah, Wednesday night. So Nintendo's February 2023 showcase, their Nintendo Direct, ran for about 40 minutes and was pretty packed. And right, before we run into this, what am I reading about people thinking that Nintendo Directs are actually bad? Where has this come from? Because outside of sometimes there are Directs that just don't have like a lot of games, or games that aren't particularly interesting for me, I don't see what the issue is with these just like 40-minute dumps of boom, here's a bunch of things, go, enjoy.
Yeah.
Have we like whiplash?
Am I missing something here?
People want like developer interviews because they don't. They don't. You'll get bored during them. Don't you pretend to me like you'd like to sit there and hear somebody say, you know, we worked really hard in this game. We think it's really good, and now we're going to counteract some media narratives for 15 minutes. It's like, no, give me a 1 minute trailer, followed by another 1 minute trailer, followed by another one, followed by a 2 minute trailer. Then one of the Nintendo dudes stands there. It's like, I'm going to recap what you just saw and give you some more information, even though the information was in the trailer. Now some more trailers, and that's it. Boom, 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 40 minutes, no nonsense. Stop pretending these should be anything else.
Yeah, I agree with Garrett fundamentally on every point he just made there.
Perfect shoot promo. I've missed those, Garrett. Thank you.
I can get fired up about everything. Whether or not I actually mean it is a different question, but I can get fired up about anything.
I think you mean that. I feel like that was genuine.
I do think Nintendo have perfected this format now. Like, they've done it for a decade. They understand what works and what doesn't. They understand more or less how to manage expectations in these things. And like, even when you consider what was in this Direct, there was one new Nintendo announcement. One new game that we did not know about before this, and it was Metroid Prime. The rest was Pikmin, which we knew about, Zelda, which we knew about, and then DLC for Xenoblade, Fire Emblem, Mario Kart, and Splatoon, all of which are existing games that are already out. So there was no new big game, there was no new heavy hitter, and still Nintendo delivered a show that everyone's like, oh, hell yeah, that was a good one, wasn't it? Like, that shows you how much Nintendo have perfected this format down to like a science, that even when there was no new game announcement, none, absolutely none, because the new Switch is coming out next year, and that's probably why. Everyone's like, yeah, good Direct, well done, thumbs up.
And it's not like Nintendo are the only ones that do these sorts of 30-40 minute like kind of straight to the point, here's a bunch of games, go. You know, like Microsoft and Sony are doing these sorts of things as well now, as well are just like your kind of other major publishers. Like, they've all jumped on this bandwagon because, hey, it's great. It's just like, boom, here's a show reel of half an hour, get all your info here, and then be on your merry way.
And like, anytime you watch the Keeleys now, it's excruciating to sit down and watch those full 2-hour shows, sometimes longer. They're torture, and there's always like a 30-minute block of absolutely nothing that you put there as filler. And like, there's weird fashion games in this Direct, but they're for somebody. Like, all these games are for somebody. Yeah, stop it. Be pithy, be quick, because don't be annoying.
We as a society still have not clocked onto the point that, yes, these people are very good at making games, but they should not be the people on stage presenting to talk about those games. That's where it all falls apart, and we need to stop that.
And if you're going to do that, do it separately from this. Be like, and now we have a developer showcase afterwards that you don't have to watch.
Well, yeah, because that's, you'd have like the Treehouse Directs they would do afterwards, where, you know, like they would be there playing the game, and even if you didn't want to listen to, you know, whatever programmer talk about the game or game director, you would have like 15 minutes of gameplay that they were playing, and you could watch that, so you were still getting that out of it. But yeah, I can't watch the Keeleys or any of that sort of stuff because
it's agonizing. It's legitimately agonizing to sit through the Game Awards and his Gamescom show. His Gamescom show is usually the worst because he has no good announcements. Usually, at least the Game Awards and the Summer Games Fest has like 1 or 2 like real heavy hitters, whereas like the Gamescom one is just 2 hours of nothing. And bless him, he tries his best and occasionally talks about Justin Roiland and everyone's silent, which that's a very different clip contextually now. But Keeleys, get out of here. Give me your quick 40-minute presentations.
Can I say I've so enjoyed seeing all the stuff about how, like, people saying, oh, Roiland is the heart and soul of Rick and Morty, and everyone's like, he did fuck all for the last 10 years. Like, I'm greatly enjoying that. Anyway, we started off this Direct. Pikmin 4 coming out July 21st of July 2023. It has a dog, but I don't know what Pikmin 4 is going to give me that I've not got out of prior Pikmin games.
Have you heard about the dog?
I have seen
there is a dog.
There is a dog.
I hear they just want to win Goodest Boy.
Yeah, but you know what? 808 is a great fucking cat. Like, and
it is.
It's already a strong contender. So.
And I love the way it turns into like a floating head.
But yeah, it's I don't know. I've never been big about Pikmin. I'm just gonna put it out there. I've enjoyed it for what it is, but I've never kind of sat there and just been like, oh, you know what? I'm always clamoring for more Pikmin.
Mark, it's like you're taking down all the sacred cows in this episode. Pokemon, Hitman, Pikmin. Is there anything that you won't slander?
Are either two of you Pikmen?
I could be a Pikmin, or a Pikman. We could be Pikman.
I tried with Pikmin 3 like twice, and I was like, okay. I get.
Thank you.
They're well-made games that do a specific thing that I'm just like, okay.
Yep, that's absolutely right.
This one has ice Pikmin.
You know what? I'm sure if I was to play this, I'd probably give it the good old Garrett method and be on my merry way.
I don't know.
It's expensive. To just be like, I'm going to play this for like 5 minutes, 15 minutes rather. And
we'll tell this to Garrett.
Don't you make me think about the value of the total number of games I have on Nintendo Switch, Jack. Don't you make me try and do those mental math.
I now, in an unemployed world, are more conscious of these decisions that I make, and so will not be doing the Garrett method as much this year. But Garrett there, with his disposable income.
I bought Pikmin? Because Nintendo I did buy Pikmin. Oh no, I did buy it. Because Nintendo do their Switch Online voucher things, where you can buy 2 game vouchers for $100, which means you can buy a game for 50. So I got Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom even, which is $70 now. So I got it for 50 with those vouchers, and the other one I got was Pikmin. So I did pay for. I have already bought Pikmin.
There you go.
It was mostly in the process of saving money on Tears of the Kingdom.
I look forward to your 15 minutes of discussion about it.
I should have gotten Advance Wars.
We have an expansion pass for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and a sneak peek of a new story coming out later this year. I imagine, Garrett, you will be playing this.
Yeah, there was a direction I thought they were going to take the story based on the main game, because in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 they left a very large gap that they then filled in with the DLC, the Torna DLC, which was like a 30-hour game in its own right, because these games are humongous. But this seems to be going in a different direction, because the concept art is the 3 main swords from the 3 main games, and obviously you see characters from the other games in this teaser DLC, which is coming out this year and will be campaigned for very hard in both Best Music and going 2 for 2. And best game of not 2023. But yeah, I'm looking at it. It's good. It looks cool.
How much you've started, Jack? You've started Xenoblade, right?
Yeah, I need to get back to it. I'm sorry, Garrett.
Betrayal.
Just got. Yeah,
listen, the more you play in 2023, the more you can back up the best game of not 2023 case. So I'm okay with this.
You say this in the year that Hitman Freelancer has come out. All right, you're gonna have to put up a hell of a fight.
Xenoblade can win him over. It can win his heart.
I don't know.
I really like Hitman. Yeah, look. From what I played of it, I really liked it. So it is entirely possible that I could turn heel on Hitman. I mean, I'm not saying I'm gonna, but it's possible. Like Mark turning heel on everything.
We are getting a new Samba de Amigo game. Can I say my only experience with Samba de Amigo is driving as him in that Sonic Transform game from a few years ago. I've never actually sat down and played one of these things. I can't imagine this will be the one that I pick up. If this is like a 50-60 quid game, I don't think this could do anything more than, say, like what a Switch Sports last year did. And again, I'm not at the point where I can be making those sort of impulse purchases anymore, but I guess it looks fine as a party thing. I have no further takes past that.
I appreciate that the reason this probably exists is that Sega, who published it, looked at the Switch Joy-Con and said, you can shake those like maracas. And then they're like, let's bring this back. I'm on board for that kind of thought process.
There it is. It's just have you pre-ordered it yet, mate?
I haven't. I'll show restraint here. Though I would like to shake my Joy-Con like maracas. Who doesn't want to do that? And I have so many of them. I have like 6 Joy-Con.
But the best thing is you don't need to buy that game to do that. You could go do that right now if you wanted to.
But they might add some HD rumble effects. You don't get the feeling of the maracas, Mark.
That is true. I do forget about the HD rumble.
Which I really hope they do. I really hope they actually put the effort into making it feel like you're shaking maracas.
I don't really want to imagine Garrett with his HD rumble shaking his maracas, so I feel like we should move on.
Nintendo Direct then announced Fashion Dreamer from Marvelous Entertainment, which is due out at some point this year. Yeah, this is a thing, as Garrett kind of mentioned. Hey, look, there are games for different types of people, and if you saw this and this was working for you, then thumbs up. Hope you get something out of it. But that was kind of all I've got. It's all I've got. I have nothing else on this one.
Everybody was very sad it wasn't style savvy.
Yeah. There is still fucking Dead Cells like content coming. Like, what the hell? We're up to, I feel like 4 or 5 expansion packs for that game now.
Yeah, really cool Dead Cells looking content too.
Yeah, I'll take Castlevania. You throw Castlevania into anything, and I'm gonna have a grand old time with it. I need to get back to Dead Cells. I say every now and again that I'll play it, but then I'm also saying that with Hades at the moment, that I'll jump back into it, and then I never do it. But maybe for Castlevania DLC content, I will do that. Biffle Games, who best known for a game that I really liked many, many years ago called Thomas Was Alone, has what is a game here called Tron Identity. Tron, as in, you know, the IP that you're aware of.
The Tron Identity?
From the Kingdom Hearts franchise.
I don't know what this thing is meant to be. I've never seen Tron, either the original or the. It's not a remake. It's just a sequel, right?
Yeah, it's a sort of sequel.
Yeah, never seen either of them.
I mean, fair enough. I wouldn't say it was an essential, but it is one of those ones that kind of everybody just knows. You know, I think I just assumed that it was like one of those universal references that everyone had seen at some point, but, you know, maybe not. I'm not going to say you're missing out on anything massive, though.
Well, we kind of, myself and Maria, we're kind of making a thing to try and watch some more classic films over the year. Like, we watched Metropolis for the first time a few weeks ago.
Metropolis, Puss in Boots, all the big movies. All the big ones.
Oh dear. But yeah, I don't know what this is. Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, which is a remaster of Ghost Trick, comes out this summer. And I didn't know about this game, but I was seeing on Twitter a lot of people were saying, hey, you motherfuckers should play Ghost Trick. So I might put this on the list.
Yeah, there's one that we were like, best game ever? I was like, what?
Yeah.
Ghost Trick?
I feel like this might have been something that you might have known about, Garrett. I don't know why. I just felt like, yeah, Garrett probably knows about this.
I haven't. As a general rule, Capcom series are a real blind spot for me. A lot of them. It's very strange.
I didn't even realize this was Capcom. I've only just registered now there's a fucking Capcom thing.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cool, though. I looked at a little bit of footage of the original, and it has kind of a really kind of chunky visual style to it that I appreciate, and they've cleaned it up for this version, so I feel like I might just go in and play the original instead, because we live in a world now where that sort of thing is possible, so but it looks pretty cool. Deca Police, whatever, anime nonsense, don't care.
You play a cop and you get turned into cats, and you go into a digital world and you can be turned into cats, and you solve crimes, and you do battles, and it's level 5, which is kind of the level 5 direct as well. We'll talk about that in a minute.
And you can turn into cats?
You can turn into cats, Jack.
Cats.
And not the terrible movie.
Mark,
Please.
you can turn into cats.
I have a cat. I don't need to turn into one.
Wouldn't you love to turn
not
into
cat.
a cat and talk to your cat? Don't tell me that wouldn't be a fascinating experience for you.
No, because I'm pretty sure my cat, the only words that she would be saying are feed me and pet me. So there's not much more I can get out of that.
To be fair, we've been friends for a while. You do say that a lot.
That is true. I say that, yes. Alright, so they announced this a while ago, this kind of like Bayonetta spin-off called Soretta and the Lost Demon, and I wasn't too sure about it, but I gotta say, from this, like what they showed here, I'm on board with this thing. I think this thing looks really cool. I think visually it has a really interesting kind of watercolor art style to it, and maybe it'll be better than Bayonetta 3, which is not the highest bar to cross. So I think I'm on board with this. It's a weird fucking thing, but I appreciate that it's a weird fucking thing, and I appreciate that they're just going off in a different direction with Bayonetta, because unless at some point Sony or Microsoft decide to go, you know what, like, fine, bring it over, we'll put it on one of our consoles, I don't think I need to see until we have a Nintendo bit of kit and hardware that can do whatever ambition that Platinum Games want to do with Bayonetta, I don't want to see any more of those games on the Switch, at least anyway. But this, I don't know. I think this looks pretty cool.
Yeah, there was previews of it this week as well. So people have gone hands-on with it, and they were pretty hot on it too. So it seems like a cool little like twin-stick dual control Zelda game. Seems like puzzly, combat-y, over-the-shoulder, third-person perspective kind of thing. Yeah, it seems pretty cool. It seems something. I was when they first showed it, I'm like, because it was shown at the Game Awards, I think first. I was like, I don't know what it is. Like you look at it, it's a bunch of Bayonetta nonsense, but like, what's the actual game? And in these trailers and in some of the preview coverage, you've actually seen what the game actually is, and it looks pretty cool. It looks actually almost Astral Chain inspired, which is another game from Platinum where you're kind of controlling two characters at once, and they seem to have taken that mechanic and applied it here to a very different genre.
Splatoon 3 Expansion Pass is a paid DLC that includes 2 waves of content. First wave features Inkopolis and launches this spring, and wave 2, dubbed Side Order, launches at some point later. Now, here's my guilty little secret. I actually traded in my copy of Splatoon 3 a little while ago. So
how many hearts do you want to break on one episode of this podcast?
I don't understand why it's with Mark on this goddamn episode.
Look, right. I decided I was going to turn heel for this year. I've been babyface for too long. I needed a new coat of paint, and so here I am. I've got the beard. I'm a little rudo now. So yeah, sorry about that, boys.
Heartbreaker.
You're very rude, eh?
But yes, this DLC, it basically, the first part is putting like a skin on your home area, the hub area. It turns it into the one from Splatoon 1, which it's funny to me that Splatoon 1 is now a nostalgia play. It's like, that game was 2015. No, and like 8 years is actually a pretty long time, but it makes me feel very old. And then the Side Order thing is probably going to be the single player DLC, and the single player DLC of Splatoon 2 was absolutely phenomenal. So I have very high expectations for the single player DLC of Splatoon 3 as well, especially after the single player of Splatoon 3 itself was also absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, it's so good, yeah.
I can't wait for you to be conflicted over this in Xenoblade for not Game of 2023.
Tugging at my heart.
Something that was tugging at my heart, Disney Illusion Island, featuring Mickey Mouse and co, launches on the 28th of July, and this... I feel like this might be the sort of Rayman Origins, Rayman Legends game I've been looking for all this time that Ubisoft are just never apparently going to fucking do again for some reason. I think I love the way this looks. It might be a fairly kind of basic platformer, as those kind of Mickey Illusion games have been for the Mega Drive and whatnot, but I'm down for how this looks, and I will be playing this on day one for sure.
I don't like the new Mickey Mouse design. I don't like it.
Why not?
If this just had the classic designs, I'd be like 10 times more on board. But it has those like that new animated short style they've done, and I don't like them. Put skins of the good-looking designs in them, and then I'll play your game.
I don't know. I'm for it. I like it. Has a distinct look to it that I'm on for.
Because I'm with you. I think the game looks cool, and the game visually looks coul. It's just those character designs that I get stuck on. I don't love them.
Jack, you're the middleman here. Where'd you sit on it?
I can't say that I feel like it looks discernibly different from what I would expect a Mickey Mouse in a video game to look like. I don't have the passion, the dander that Garrett's been able to work up on this one, I must say.
You scummy little centrist.
I just... Look, you will get takes from me on things that I really give a shit about. Mickey Mouse is not one of them, I'm afraid. I don't know if that makes me a bad guy.
What about the Fire Emblem Engage expansion pass? What are your takes on that?
Oh, very important to me. I don't care.
where are you, Garrett, with Fire Emblem? Because I've played, I think, like the first 4 or 5 levels, and now a bunch of other things have come out, and I wasn't particularly gravitating towards it to begin with, because it is a whole lot of anime nonsense. I really struggle to believe I'm going to get back to that thing.
Yeah, I haven't touched it in a couple of weeks because I got sucked into Hades again, and that just happens. As I said in the show a couple of weeks ago, the story is the worst it's been in one of these games for a while, and it's always been anime adjacent, but it's the worst it's been in one of these games for a while. But the gameplay is still as good, if not maybe a little better than it's been in a while. So there's that awkward trade-off. But it is a good-looking game and a good-sounding game, which is nice on Switch.
Yeah, but why does the main character's mum look younger than him?
Well, she's a dragon, Mark.
Anyway.
Who are you to say? Yeah, they're all dragons. Everyone in the big twist in every Fire Emblem game is they're all dragons. That's always the case.
But
they're always dragons.
All the female characters look about 12 and have the breast physics of someone who's about 10 to 12 years older. I feel uncomfortable with it. That's all I'm going to say.
I can't say I was paying attention.
Aaron, his thoughts on breast physics.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
I wasn't paying any attention to the breast physics, I must say, Mark. So maybe this questioning yourself a little bit.
Mark telling on himself here.
Mark is pondering how to talk himself out of this situation.
In fairness, Garrett, when would you ever look at breast physics
That's
in
true.
general?
The fair point. There are butts in this game. I'd look at those.
Butt physics. Now that is yeah.
That's why Immortality made Game of the Year.
A brand new game from Life is Strange developer Don't Nod called Harmony: The Fall of Reverie is due out this June, and this. Yep, Jack, you there?
Yep. Give me Don't Nod content in any format, and I will play the fuck out of it.
It doesn't look like a Don't Nod game, like visually.
It's like the profiling of it is like more like a flat sort of 2D playing, isn't it? With a lot of it, and like this is like cell shady, and it looks cool though. I thought it looked.
Cool, it looks great. I really would be interested to play this, and I kind of am up and down on Don't Nod, but I think that visually this is doing something that I would be interested in. Octopath Traveler 2. Garrett, you in Octopath? You were there for Octopath 1, right?
Yeah, I played all of Octopath 1. And I liked it. It had flaws, because like the big flaw of that game is like the whole hook is like we have 8 different characters and they come together. And it turns out that you just really play through 8 different stories. And like in typical fashion, some are good, some are alright. But there's never the point where the 8 stories like converge into something really meaningful. There's like an end game.
It's not Live Alive.
It's really not Live Alive. That's the thing. And it is like the spiritual successor to Live Alive almost, because it follows a lot like a very similar structure, but then doesn't kind of stick the landing of bringing those together. So like the big question of this one is, did they learn from that, and have they come up with a more meaningful way for those characters to come together? It will still be a very pretty, very, very good sounding game, and they also have the break and basically the Bravely Default system from Bravely Default. I think they call it something slightly different here, where you can go through the strategy elements of like the risk reward system, where you can attack 4 times, but then you'll go 4 turns without being able to attack, so you can like go all in on one big attack, but then you'll be left without being able to attack or heal for a while. And that system is really good, and it's made all these games a little bit better. There's a demo out. I haven't played it yet, but I will be playing it probably this weekend.
Cool. Well, we look forward to hearing about that next week.
Yeah, that game's out in like 2 weeks, so.
Yeah, that's out very soon. Bandai Namco announced Wheel of Katamari Reroll, due out 2nd of June. Katamari is also one of those games where I appreciate it from afar, but like anytime I've played it, after about 10 minutes, I've gone, I get what this is cool, but I have no desire to play past that.
I feel
just me.
Yeah, like because like Donut County had like the similar thing, but then Donut County wasn't very long. Where it's like Donut County is you're a hole that gets bigger as you suck things up. This is like you're a giant ball that gets bigger as you roll things up. It's very similarly conceptually.
It's an avalanche game.
Yeah, but here I'm with.
But it's a little bit more awkward physically, which is by design as well.
Yeah, that's part of the fun, but also part of the frustration. I'm the same. Like I've only played one of them. I played the remake of the first one they released, and this is the second remake they've released. And I was like, yeah, this is all right. I'm never going to touch it again.
Sabotage Studios' retro turn-based RPG Sea of Stars launches 29th of August, and I think there's a demo out for this one as well, or I saw someone playing something related to this in the last like day or two. This looks really nice, has that 2D JRPG kind of look to it. Feels like there's a few of those this year. There was that Chained Echoes at the start of the year, which people were really bigging up. which is on Game Pass at the moment. And I mean, yeah, this looks pretty cool. Like, if I hear good things, I might jump into it. But it does take a lot for a JRPG to kind of grab me and actually keep me playing. So I don't know, like, of you two, you are the JRPG aficionados here, if this has kind of grabbed your eyes at all.
Yeah, because this is Sabotage Studios, which developer of The Messenger. And obviously this is a very different game from The Messenger.
Sure is.
But they made a very good game. It has Yasunori Mitsuda doing some of the music, which thumbs up. That makes every game better. And yeah, it's coming out in August, and it does have a demo out at the moment. I tried Chained Echoes, and I just couldn't get into it. I gave it like an honest go over Christmas. And it might be...
I found the characters move too quickly.
I didn't like the RPG mechanics. I just didn't find it particularly engaging. But it also might be that I played it in like the, Christmas, January kind of I don't want to touch games after Game of the Year brain and mindset. So there might be a little bit of that I took out on Chained Echoes. But I've been looking forward to Sea of Stars, because I think, did I kickstart this? I did. I kickstarted this when it was launched. So
it's you are the reason it's here.
I am. I am technically a producer on this video game. I have to declare that as a conflict of interest.
Free-to-play air hockey multiplayer game Omega Strikers launches on the 27th of April. This just looks like cannon fodder to me. It doesn't look particularly inspiring. Windjammers.
A bit like Windjammers, yeah, really.
No.
I mean, it's just Windjammers, really, isn't it?
No, Jack.
It's not that much different.
It is funny that it is
2.
basically just Windjammers, and you're like, this one doesn't look very inspiring, I must say.
No, because it doesn't look like...
There is no fun narrative to this, therefore I will not...
It is not a good-looking Windjammers, all right? You see Windjammers and you're like, that's a good-looking game. This is not that.
Set your watch to sometime in the next 6 to 18 months when the Omega Striker servers are being turned off story hits. It's true. It's
Garrett.
sad but true, because like we had a bunch of much bigger games fall in the last few weeks, because the reality is, for every success story you have in games as a service, there is less room for everybody else, in a way that there isn't for single player games, because you finish a single player game, you go on to something else. Once you get a Fall Guys that becomes people's game, or once you get an Apex that becomes people's game, there's just less room, and there's less room for small games like this to hit, other than like people trying it for the first week or two and then never touching it again, in the same way that happened with probably Rumbleverse. So farewell, Omega Strikers. Kenny Omega will say goodbye to you in 6 to 18 months.
I'm surprised that Multiverses hasn't gone that way yet. I haven't looked at the player numbers for that thing, but I don't feel like that had the kind of biggest overturn of like Smash players to go like, oh yeah, like this is the new thing we should be playing. It's not a thing I hear about people playing at all, so I'm kind of surprised at thing, but I feel like maybe there's more muscle behind that because it's Warner Brothers, that they can kind of like elongate this thing out. But
yeah, I was going to make that same point, but like Rumbleverse had Epic behind it, and they're like, nah, shut up.
I guess, but I also imagine they probably just look at how much Fortnite makes and sees there's a very, very small amount over here that is Rumbleverse, and just went, it's just not worth it. So it sucks. Etrian Odyssey Origins Collection. I don't know what the fuck this is. I presume it's a bunch of JRPGs from a lesser, an earlier time in life, and I don't know what they are, but they're here, I guess. More importantly, though, Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp coming 21st of April. Presumably with any kind of mention of invading another country now removed, possibly.
I wonder, like, what's the PR thing on that? In that they delayed it because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which is still ongoing. That hasn't ended. And now they're like, fuck, we just have to put it out, I guess.
It's like, well, they delayed it, but did they actually change the game in any way to with that in mind? Because, in fairness, it's kind of hard to do a game about warfare and not have war in it. So, yeah.
I'd ultimately say
Advanced Skirmish?
I'd say they haven't touched it.
Advanced Scuttlebutt.
But I'd be fascinated to sit in on the Nintendo PR meetings of like, what is the correct amount of time, having delayed this because of the war, to then release it? Like, what's the decent amount of time here? Do you think they're sitting around and saying, this thing's not ending anytime soon? Fuck Putin, just put the thing out.
Yeah. It's also really weird because, like, you look at the visual style of this game, and it has, very kind of Saturday morning anime kind of visual approach to it, and it looks very cartoonish. It doesn't look like a game that's about to depict warfare. Which, in fairness, the originals have a kind of similar, more crunchy 8-bit style, of course, 16-bit style. But there is a kind of a polar opposite sort of thing going on between the content and how it actually looks. So, yeah, you are kind of on the ball there about in terms of the PR, like how they're going to approach this, and it probably just has to be a thing like, let's just get this fucking thing out. Yeah. And no, I don't think people are going to make that much of a fuss about it. Compared to, say, a certain game about a wizard that came out recently. So, I don't think Nintendo are going to stress too much about it.
Look, Dave's talked about like those Shadow of Mordor games enough without you bringing up wizards and stuff, Mark. Come on.
Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe has a new demo out now on the eShop. Look, game launches the 24th of February. I have not downloaded the demo yet, but I should get around to that at some point.
It sure looks like a Kirby game.
Sure does, doesn't it?
I am down.
But you know what? I'll always play a Kirby game. Like, what you're getting with Kirby, and it's always going to be, at best, or at worst, half decent. And,
Big pink blob swallows everything.
Yeah, and you always have to set your expectations at games made for 4-year-olds.
Yes. That is absolutely true. In what was kind of a surprise, but also, I don't know why I just got irrationally irritated because the fact that it's taken them 5 to 6 years to finally fucking do this. But we finally have Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games on the Nintendo Switch as part of their Switch Online service. It's cool that it's here, but A, it really annoys me that it's taken them this long, and B, it really annoys me that there's about 6 or 7 games per platform on here, and some of them are, I guess, like maybe the American and European versions. I haven't actually looked into what the different versions of the same game is all about. With that said, there's some really good stuff in there. Obviously, with the Game Boy, Tetris, come on now, Jack's favorite, 6 Golden Coins, Link's Awakening DX, and Gargoyle's Quest. And then over on the Game Boy Advance, we've got the likes of Mario Kart Super Circuit and the Minish Cap. So, a strong collection of games, but again, and I'm speaking of this as someone who has the entire back catalogues of these consoles on several different platforms at this point, but it does infuriate me. Oh, they would arrest me if they knew what I downloaded yesterday, I'll tell you that much. Probably should phrase that differently. Anyway, yeah.
Check Mark's hard drive, please.
Yeah. I don't know if you kind of had similar reactions to me, or just like, hey, it's cool, these things exist now.
I'm happy they exist. I think the thing that has slowed them down is the online. Like that's the thing that has slowed these from being like a thing they drop much faster, is that all the games that have multiplayer, they have enabled online, which is both cool and I'd imagine no one actually uses. Like it's very cool that like GoldenEye is online and Mario Kart 64, we can play that online. I don't think anybody's doing that. But I think that's the reason it's taken this long, is that every time they do this, it's like Mario Kart Super Circuit and the GBA will now be playable online, which it's a cool thing that exists. It's like an objectively cool thing they're doing, but it is nearly certainly slowing down the cadence of the release of these games in a way that I would prefer if they just released them as freaking ROMs of the original.
Yeah.
Just give us like a few hundred of these, because they're just sat there doing nothing otherwise, and people are just going to emulate them anyway. All the games are like 10 megabits or something for a Game Boy game. Come on now.
Give us Mario Golf Advance. That's all we ask for.
Yeah.
Interesting that there's no Pokemon games.
That is very interesting. I imagine there is a very specific reason for that.
Yeah, I just expect at some stage they're going to be like, hey, you can pay £5 for all of these individually.
Yeah.
Or like we do have Pokemon Day coming up, and we will probably have a Pokemon Direct to announce more than likely the DLC to whatever the games, like Scarlet Violet, there we go, to those games, and maybe some
the
other
games
stuff.
that Mark loves.
Yeah, his favorite games, his 2022 game of the year. But they'll probably announce the DLC for later this year. That'll probably want to be their big fall things. So maybe in whatever that Pokemon presentation to announce that stuff, they'll also say, and hey, we announced those Game Boy games. We're putting Pokemon there too, because they put them on the 3DS. Like they did put Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, Crystal on the 3DS.
I remember buying one or two of those. And I can't imagine they would. But if they were to launch those original games, but they were like a standalone thing that you had to pay even for a $5, I wouldn't break my Switch in half. I would be very upset with Nintendo.
Like the whole thing is online. If you could battle like Pokemon Crystal online through these things, that would be pretty cool.
That would be, yeah.
It would be. I would beat Mark every single day with my team of Wailords.
Well, Wailord's not in Pokemon Crystal, but sure.
I would make it happen somehow.
This would be Jack's hacked version. Yeah, well, I'll just get out Missing Go, alright? Just corrupt both our games.
Take down the entire Nintendo Switch Online infrastructure with your Missing Go.
Yes.
You wouldn't believe what's on Mark's hard drive.
Oh, just a bunch of Missingos. Yeah, Metroid Prime Remaster, that's out now. Digital version only. The physical version comes 3rd of March. And hey, Garrett says it's pretty good so far. So, you know, if you're interested in getting it, it's out there.
Yeah, they did a deeper job with it than you would both expect, and they probably even had to. Like they did a decent amount of work to this thing, so you might writhe at the $40 price tag, especially because it's not the trilogy. But I would have expected them to charge $60, so my expectations were like so low for Nintendo that charging $40 is like, oh, good job, guys.
Anyone know what the fuck Baton Kaitos is?
It's a GameCube RPG with cards.
All right.
You basically battle with cards.
From the developers of Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah, which made me think that'd be Garrett's Game of the Year.
It may well be, because it is from Monolith. Pre-Nintendo owned Monolith, but from Monolith.
I do like games with cards. Except Final Fantasy VIII, so I might be on for this.
It is like long before.
I tell you what, right? I'm gonna this is outrageous from Mark. Like at this point, he is just hacking at my soul now. I can't stand this.
Do you know what? I fucking hate Pokemon Pinball. Like it's just the worst.
You are a gobshite of the highest order. How dare you?
I'd be lying. I like Pokemon Pinball. It's much better than Sonic Pinball.
Fucking right it is.
Sorry, Garrett, you were saying.
I'll retract my previous statement.
I don't even remember. Oh yeah, but long before every game had cards in it, this was the first game. Well, probably not the first game that had cards in it. Like poker had cards in it before this. But Baton Kaitos was one of those first. Like you do moves by drawing cards from a deck, and that was like the big hook for this RPG.
Yeah, I might be interested in this, but if it's 1 and 2, if it's both of them and they're RPGs, I'm kind of worried about collectively the game time between the two of them. So I might wait until it's out there, or I might even go look and see what the originals are on how long to beat, and then make my decision based off of that.
And then you will start your slow path through all of Monolith's games to Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Yeah, that'll happen. In the meantime, what else we got here? Oh, Professor Layton and the New World of Steam from level 5. There's not really much there. There's just like a little bit of footage, but there's not that much for now.
Literally just a game and a name.
Yeah, I've never played a Professor Layton game before, so maybe this is the one I'll jump in. I don't know.
I played a couple of the DS ones. They're enjoyable little things. You just solve puzzles and the man has a top hat. What more do you want in life?
Yeah.
That was a sweet top hat that you put on in that trailer, in fairness.
Doesn't he have like a Cockney kid who's like, oh, I'm Professor Layton, this is how you solve these puzzles? It's good fun.
Hello, Governor. £2 your pair. And Mark's a scumbag.
Has Professor Layton always done like a steampunk vibe sort of thing, or is that kind of specific for this one?
No, that's new.
All right.
It's
Can we get Ray Winston to play the Cockney child, please?
Yes. Nintendo have ruined the world new so much that when I saw New World of Steam, I thought it was a remake. Because that's what Nintendo do. It's just they slap new in front of everything. It's like new Pokemon Snap, new Super Mario Bros. But it's just like, no, it's a New World of Steam, apparently.
I can't wait for new Tetris. And then you guys are trying to give it Game of the Year.
I mean, that would be the accurate thing to do.
Game of Not 2023, Tetris on the Game Boy.
At least it's the original version.
OG Tetris, platform. Baby.
Yeah.
We've got Wave 4 of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe coming out this spring. Notable because it's adding Birdo, which for Eurogamer, from this article, is something of a mascot. So Yeah, Birdo's being added. I don't actually know
What is Birdo?
What is that is a fucking question. We could be here for a while.
Dinosaur?
Yeah, but why is it swallowed like a fucking loudhailer? I don't. And it has like a bow on its head. What is Birdo?
It's a good question.
Can anyone answer this?
What is in that giant hole?
Listen, Mark. There's some questions you just don't want to ask and don't want answered either.
Why does it shoot eggs out its nose as well?
But is that its nose?
Birdo?
Like, is it a nose?
That's a good question.
It's a honk piece.
Given it shoots eggs, it could be anything.
It's scientifically a honk piece. Okay, we just have to accept it.
The more interesting thing is there is a new track in this, as opposed to like where they were told us all the tracks would be just past tracks from old games. Now they're like, hey, we also made a new Yoshi's Island track. Here, have that too.
Well, in fairness, have they run out? I don't know how many tracks they've got from World Tour that they could put in, but yeah. Like what I'm trying to think of, like what classics are left that I would want in there, and I can't think of that many. So it's nice. It's nice for them to throw in some new tracks.
Uncle Fart's Fartatorium on the Wii.
Also,
Jack, if
just gonna motor right past that. It's also doing the thing that the original DLC did a lot, where it's like, you know, they changed the item blocks to the Yoshi like question mark clouds. They're doing a bunch of those little touches that make it very nice.
Yeah, I'm always here for new waves of these tracks. Like, I'll play them for a few days and then move on to the next thing, and that's perfectly okay with me. Something that I will not just kind of gloss by, though, is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and yeah, this thing looks pretty good. It's Breath of the Wild, but a lot of it is in the sky as well, and apparently, like, they took inspiration from Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, because Link is now driving some weird contraptions and flying around in the sky. And yeah, I'm going to play this game. I'm going to play this game quite a lot. Hot takes.
Because we didn't see a lot of this. Like, this game was announced in the summer of 2019. And I think we had like a cumulative 2 minutes, maybe less, of gameplay since then. And even then, now we have a cumulative 4 minutes of gameplay of this video game. But
Garrett, can I ask where those 3 or 4 years went, by the way? Because that is horrifying.
We are all impossibly old, Mark.
God.
And we just get older, and the passage of time moves faster, which on the one hand makes the Zelda game come quicker. So it's like a pretty good thing when you think about it. But also it makes us feel very old and dead.
As I pointed out yesterday or the day before, Outcast's Hey Ya is 20 years old, and that is just simply unfucking acceptable. So, and it's only going to get worse from here.
Well, yeah, I was saying how like Splatoon DLC is retro now. That was 2015! There's a bunch of kids who are like, that's 8 years ago. So there's a bunch of kids who were like 10 when that came out, who are now adults with jobs who can drive, who are like, that's my childhood, and that hurts me emotionally.
The same adults that are just absolutely desperate to pay €60 for a Metroid Prime remake.
Oh dear, Zelda is good. Good looking game, good trailer. I'm looking forward to being Link and going, yeah.
Which console, which generation are we at that is the kind of new retro? Is it PS3, Xbox 360?
Yeah.
Because I've been playing a bunch of Trials HD and just kind of diving back into like the Xbox Live Arcade, and that's what I was kind of 17, 18, and I guess for me I would consider that retro at this point, but that still feels uncomfortable.
I think
like
as
the
a
idea of
general
Metal Gear
rule,
Solid 4 as retro, just what?
Yeah, like as a general rule, the end of the console generation being over a decade ago, it's retro.
Yeah.
And we're firmly in that for PS3, 360, Wii. But some of the Wii U is retro now.
Scary.
Splatoon is retro. Fucking Splatoon. No! No! That's like the new Nintendo thing. It's not the old Nintendo thing. You're not allowed to Splatoon nostalgia yet.
What is Birdo?
Honk piece.
Put Birdo on Splatoon
Exactly.
and Birdo can shoot ink out of its nose / mouth / whatever it is.
Well, Jack, you've got a number of working titles there for this episode of Links to the Cast, but we are at the end.
I'd go with what is on Mark's hard drive.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that, but what you can do is like, listen, share, and subscribe this podcast on the number of platforms that it's available on. As always, be checking us out on YouTube at Link to the Cast, and be sure to give some likes and subscribes and some love there if you can as well. As always, we are on Link to the Cast at Twitter, which is still here amazingly, but it does feel like more parts are falling off every week at this point. Dave is at The Day to Dave. I am at Lithium Project. Jack is at Jack Lazell. Garrett is at Garrett Kidney. Thank you once again for listening to another installment of A Link to the Cast, and we will see you again next week.
What is Birdo?